Hi everybody, it's me, Mrs. McAllen again, and I am going to be reading chapter 8 of the book She Dared, the biography of Bethany Hamilton. And after reading chapter 7 and listening to Mrs. Taylor read it, we found some really exciting news in Bethany's life, and that is that she got up on that board on the day that she put her mind and her heart to it on Thanksgiving Day, so that's really exciting. Bethany realized that it wasn't going to be easy, and I think that she knew that going into it. And so today we're going to read chapter 8, and it's the title of it is Time to Make Some Noise. And let's see what it's all about. Let's see what Bethany has in store for us today. So again, this is a biography of Bethany Hamilton, and it is written by Jenny L. Walsh, and some of the clues that let us know that it is a biography and not an autobiography. Notice it says she dared instead of I dared, because if it was an autobiography, then she would be writing this from first person point of view, using words like I got up on the board, or my family, or we, where in this case we have somebody writing it for her. Okay, so it's a biography. All right, so again, chapter 8, Time to Make Some Noise. It was after Bethany's first time surfing again that the idea of sharks being in the water sank in. While it was never in the back of her mind before, surfing with sharks was something that made her very afraid now, as you can imagine. But she'd fight that fear. She'd keep getting in the water. She'd focus on the waves and how stoked she was to be surfing again. She'd keep her sights set on her dreams. If she ever felt uneasy, she'd take a breath and get out of the water, and that was okay. Bethany was determined to train every day, twice a day, some days up to 7 hours a day. Each morning began much the same way. Bethany's mom clicked on the television and put on the local island weather channel. Next step, her mom needed coffee. While she brewed a strong cup for herself, she listened to the forecast and also the buoy reports. Those were really important and helped Bethany's mom pick the best spot for her daughter to surf that day. Cloudy but no rain this morning, Bethany, her mom hollered one morning. In the past, surfing in the rain wasn't a bad thing, which is good since it rains almost daily in Hawaii, if only for a short burst. But after her run-in with the shark, it was hard not to think how the rain would make the water murky, and how that murky water could be hiding the jaws of a shark or could cause the beast to mistake her for food. But shark attacks aren't that common, and part of Bethany thought that it simply couldn't happen to her again. Sharks just didn't come around enough. Once is weird, twice won't happen, she often told herself. It was good to put the actual frequency of shark attacks into perspective. It was even better to put the number of shark attacks into perspective by combining them with funny facts. Each year, air fresheners injured 200 times more Americans than sharks did. That's one of her facts. Buckets and pails injured 800 times more Americans than sharks did. And toilets injured 3,000 times more Americans than sharks did. Toilets, I wonder how that happened. Regardless of the silliness and the relatively low number of shark attacks, Bethany was someone who was now part of those stats, and she sighed, relieved that rain wasn't in the forecast, so there'd be non-murky water awaiting her. She didn't need her mind playing tricks on her, imagining things that weren't there. From her bed, Bethany called to her mom, "How's the wind?" While still tucked under her covers, Bethany started each day with a devotional, which is a fancy way of saying she spent time with God, praying and reading her Bible. That day's Bible verse was about how God had a plan for everyone. Bethany believed it to be true. It was why she thought she was bitten by that beast and thrust into the limelight, so that she could inspire others and share her faith. And she'd very happily keep surfing as part of God's plan for her. Bethany added, "Are they offshore winds?" "For now," her mom responded from the kitchen. Bethany smiled. She liked those. Onshore winds, the kind that blew from the ocean toward land, often caused choppy water. In other words, not great surfing conditions, especially with Stumpy affecting her balance. But good offshore winds, ones that blew from land out to sea, delayed the breaking of a wave. This made it steeper and more powerful. But would she be able to balance in these conditions? In more ways than one, Stumpy was an adjustment. So Bethany often thought, I'll adjust. If she wanted to be a pro surfer, there was no other way around it. During competition for the judges to give her a score for how well she rode the wave, Bethany had to be completely on her feet, her hand no longer on the board. That took a lot of balance, and she needed her whole body to be strong. To help, over the past few weeks, she'd been using resistance bands and swimming laps. Yes, with one arm. She ran on the beach, which helped to strengthen her legs, allowing her to hold her breath longer underwater. She lifted weights and did stomach crunches. That last one helped tone her core muscles, the ones she needed while twisting and turning on her surfboard. And on dry land, Bethany had also spent a lot of time on and falling off a balance board and a skateboard. In the water, she spent a lot of time on and falling off her longboard and, eventually, a 6-foot-long shortboard. Being back on her normal shortboard was a big achievement, and she had the bumps, the bruises, the reef rash, and coral scratches to prove it. Not like she'd stop, though, not with how much she loved being back on her shortboard or with how nationals kept creeping closer and closer, which is exactly why she needed to train. Today, with no rain and favorable winds, the surfing conditions sounded promising, but there were still more factors to consider: wave height and wave length. What kind of waves do we have? She called from her bed to her mom. Got some big ones, some big tall ones coming on every 18 seconds. That also made Brittany smile. Waves came in sets, a few waves per set, and surfers wanted the time between each wave to be nice and long. To put it simply, the longer the period between each wave, the more powerful the wave would be when it broke. And Bethany wanted powerful waves to practice on. Luckily, that day's buoy report was telling Bethany she was probably in for some gnarly waves. God was giving her a good weather day out on the water. As she put aside her Bible and got out of bed to get ready, she was nervous, yet stoked. Up until today, Bethany had spent a lot of time surfing on smaller waves, just standing up and figuring out how to catch them. Each time she felt better and better about her surfing abilities. But she couldn't stay on the small waves forever. Pro surfers didn't surf those types of waves. Bethany said a quick prayer for safety and no sharks and came out from her bedroom. Tie me with a question mark. Her mom double knotted the back of Bethany's bikini top and pulled her hair into a ponytail. Ready? Bethany grinned, even as a sharp pain radiated through her arm, her missing arm. Stumpy still caused her phantom pain. I'm ready. She and her mom jumped in, Blue Crush. With the next national competition only months away, Bethany wanted to move on from the ankle slappers to the bigger waves. That required getting past the crashing waves to the calmer water. There, she'd lie on her belly next to the other competitors and wait for an approaching wave to catch. During each round at nationals, the judges would be looking for a variety of different maneuvers connected to other skills, with a powerful speed and flow. Bethany knew a move called a backside snap often caught the eye of judges. First, she'd ride down the wave toward the bottom third of the wave. She'd twist on her board so that she was no longer riding down the wave, but up against it. Then, once she felt the board connecting with the top of the breaking wave, she'd snap. If done correctly, a snap would look like a U-turn. The skill was quick and powerful, with a flashy spray of water flying up in the air. That was what she'd want. That was what the judges would want to see when they determined what score out of 10 to give her. Then, as soon as her backside snap was complete, Bethany would study the wave, trying to figure out what skill the wave wanted her to do next. Of course, to really impress the judges, Bethany wanted to get tubed in a barrel ride. For that skill, she'd surf through a hollow wave before it crashed. When she popped out of the other side, the spectators and judges always went nuts. It was a feeling she lived for, but barrels were hard to spot and even harder to get perfect. What was that old saying, practice makes perfect? Bethany believed it. When they reached the surf spot, she was eager to get into the water to do just that, practice. And this time she'd ride the big blue waves. She ran toward the water, eyeing the waves, the sand shifting from loose to harder packed the closer she came. The conditions were good ones, just as her mom had predicted. Bethany landed belly first on her shortboard and paddled through the white water of a wave that had already crashed. Her muscles ached, but in a good way. As a big wave was about to crash, she tried to push down on the nose of her board, and she could ride underneath the breaking wave. Her arms slipped on her board. The wave pummeled her, tossing and turning her under the water, giving Bethany a dirty licking. She emerged from the water coughing, frustrated. Instead of being beyond the wave in the calmer water, the wave had taken her like a rag doll toward the shoreline. She tried again, each time with only one hand. Bethany found it hard to push down on her board, hard enough to submerge it under the water. The times she managed to duck dive, she struggled to stay on her board under the wave. If she managed that, her next challenge was controlling her board back to the surface once the wave passed. Most of the time she wiped out. She got mouthfuls of salt water. She got stuck in the impact zone where the waves broke, again and again. It was defeating, maddening, really. She'd never be able to perform the maneuvers and skills the judges were looking for if she was unable to reach the big waves. Later, her eyes burned with the promise of tears as she told her dad. It didn't take him long before he had a genius idea. "See here," he said. Her dad had attached a handle to the nose of her shortboard. It would allow her to push, hold onto, and control the board. So I want you to picture that. I'm going to repeat that, okay? I want you to create a visual image for yourself. Her dad had attached a handle to the nose of her shortboard. It would allow her to push, hold onto, and control the board. He said, "Grab onto this, Bethany." Bethany's eyes lit up. "Now I can dive under the wave." He nodded. "Now you can get past the big ones." Her dad was good like that, helping her in any way he could to succeed. Both her parents were. Her mom and dad had spent years surfing themselves, happily putting Bethany on a board at the age of 5. Surfing was like learning to ride a bike because it took time and a lot of hard work. By the time Bethany was 7 years old, she could catch waves without her parents' help. But she still needed a professional coach, especially now as she was adapting to her new body, and now that she could finally get beyond